The United States would be mistaken to take for granted the dollar's place as the world's predominant reserve currency. Those are the very recent words of World Bank President Robert Zoellick, and they've been echoed lately by the United Nations, China, Russia, Brazil, India, and others. Simply put, foreign countries are concerned, and rightly so, about the continued slide in the value of the United States dollar. The agenda of spend now, someone else will pay later, pursued by this president and his Democrat allies in Congress, is not only handing record high debts and deficits to the next generation, it's also handing them a legacy of a weakened dollar. But the majority here in Washington, D.C. seems entirely unmotivated to do anything about it. The Obama administration is projecting a federal deficit of $1.6 trillion this year, and his budget would create $9 trillion in budget deficits over the next decade, more debt than America has accumulated from the presidencies of George Washington to George W. Bush combined. And that's not even the worst of it, if you can imagine that. These forecasts don't take into account the $1 trillion healthcare reform package now before this Congress, or any other new spending that will be added in the coming years. Now, to be clear, the Bush administration did its share of overspending, that's true, but the rate we're spending and borrowing now isn't even comparable. In fact, it's unfathomable. There is no moral equivalency in the amount of debt that's been accumulated by the Republicans compared to the Democrats. In fact, federal expenditures are projected to increase this year alone in 2009, 22%. And all while the private economy has been contracting, in other words, shrinking. Foreign nations are rightly worried that the massive United States debt is rising and that deficits aren't being given their appropriate attention here in Washington, D.C. And though inflation isn't here yet in the United States, a continued slide of our dollar could lead to higher prices for goods and services for all Americans. That's the future we're looking at. But that's not what we need right now when our unemployment rate is at 9.8% and climbing. President Obama himself said unemployment could reach 10% by the end of this year, 2009. I want to show you something. Stacked beside me are petitions from hundreds of citizens from coast to coast who are concerned about the fading role and the standing of the United States dollar in the world. They've written to me because they've had enough of our very weak policies regarding the dollar. American public officials must state unequivocally their support for the dominance of the United States dollar. And they need to back up those strong statements with serious action, getting spending under control, getting our fiscal house in order. And if we fail to do this, it's future generations that will inherit a broken nation. You can be sure of that.